you will have a two-part question like that, but they're both multiple choice. All right, so it's multiple choice. It is multiple choice to fill in. There's no proofs. There's nothing where you show your work, anything like that. Mr. DePietro, good to see you. All right, that's what we got. Do you have any other questions about it? It's 11 questions long. You'll have 54 minutes. All right, it'll open at the regular class time and close at the regular class time. All right, it is all multiple choice and fill in. There will be a spot if you want to do work like this and submit it in Google Classroom. There'll be a spot in Google Classroom if after you submit your quiz you want to show your work. But please do so in a prompt fashion. Got it? So try to do it within 5 to 10 minutes of when you. All right. Any other good questions? Bad questions? Fun questions? All right. Well, good luck tomorrow. All right. The live stream will be open if there's an issue. The one thing I will tell you is this, ladies and gentlemen, and just because I like everyone, these are exact answers. These are exact answers, left in radical form. If it doesn't tell you to estimate, you leave it like that. You do not write 3.84121. That's not the exact answer. Those are the exact answers. Okay? Everybody good? Now I want to type it in and pick it up what I'm putting down? All right, perfect. All right. So now we're talking about trig. All right. So 8.3 trigonometry. Duplicate. There we go. We're talking about equivalent ratios that exist for the corresponding sides of similar right triangles. We're talking about equivalent ratios that exist for the corresponding sides of similar right triangles. All of you, hopefully by now, are aware of the 3, 4, 5 triangle, correct? Okay, 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. If we double all those sides, 6, 8, 10, it still works. Those are similar triangles that we'll deal with later in the year. Similar triangles have the same shape but a different size. Think of squares, think of circles. They always have the same shape, they just have different sizes. The same exists here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use those ratios to find sides and angle measures. All right. So those, ladies and gentlemen, are what we call those sides. Obviously, the hypotenuse is still the hypotenuse. Caroline. Caroline. Sorry. Okay. The Egypt. Okay. You there? Are you there?
At the computer, no, but I am here on the phone.
Okay. You're on the phone. So can you go back downstairs to the computer then? Can you do it in about a half an hour at 8:45? All right. So basically, this is an angle called theta. That is our variable angle. All right. Adjacent is the side that touches it. Opposite is the side that obviously does not touch it. Hypotenuse is the side, as always, opposite the right angle. All right. Opposite the right angle. All right. Sine is defined as opposite over hypotenuse. Sine is defined as opposite over hypotenuse. If you want to abbreviate opposite and hypotenuse with OPP and HYP, that's fine. Good? Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And then finally, tangent is defined as opposite over adjacent. All right? So they're just ratios. Here's a question for you, though, before moving on. Why are sine and cosine always going to be less than or equal to 1? Why are sine and cosine going to be always less than or equal to 1? Think about it. Think about a right triangle. A hypotenuse is that the shortest side, middle side, or longest side? Longest side. So if we set up a fraction where the longest side is in the denominator, isn't the numerator going to be less than that? Yes, so you're always going to have a fraction that's less than or equal to 1. No. Nope. Okay. All right. So what I want you to do on the top of your paper, all right, is write this phrase. So right up here on the top, SOHCAHTOA. 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 The S stands for sine. The O stands for opposite. The H stands for hypotenuse. The C stands for cosine. The A stands for adjacent. The H stands for hypotenuse. The T stands for tangent. The O stands for opposite. And the A stands for adjacent. SOHCAHTOA is a phrase that helps you remember which one's which. All right, it helps you remember which one's which. All right. Now, there are going to be 3 major types of problems. Problem number 1. Given a right triangle, identify the value of the trig function as a ratio. Problem number 2. Given an angle measure and side length, find an additional side length without using Pythagorean theorem. And then number 3, use the inverse trig function to find an angle measure. Use the inverse trig function to find an angle measure. Okay, so thus far we've done Pythagorean theorem where they gave you 2 sides, you had to find a third side. We then gave you special right triangles where they gave you a side and a special angle, whether it was 30, 60, or 45. Now they're going to give you any general angle. All right, and we're going to use trig ratios to estimate. But once we get through this unit, we'll differentiate between them. Okay, so step number 1 is to find the value of a trig ratio. Okay, so number 1 says sine z. Number 1 says sine z. All right, so here's z. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite angle Z is XY, which has a length of 30. The hypotenuse, which is the longest side and opposite Y, would be 34. So we start with 30 over 34, and obviously you are going to be expected to reduce. They're both even numbers. Half of 30 would be 15, and half of 34 would be 7. All right? The tangent of A. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Opposite A is 21. Adjacent is 20. So the tangent would be 21 over 20. All right? Obviously, tangent can be greater than 1. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent to A is the 9. The hypotenuse is 41. So it would be 9 over 41. If you have a hard time distinguishing between adjacent and hypotenuse, just letting you know, because that's a mistake that's made, you may want to circle the hypotenuse in the very beginning, but that's up to you. That's a visual thing. All right? It's not required, but if you find yourself confused, it may be something you want to look into. All right? Okay. Nothing bad there, right? So now we'll look at the second type of problem. Second type, finding a side length. Number 1, identify the appropriate trig ratio. Number 2, substitute the angle measure and the side length given. Number 3, use equation solving or proportional thinking to find the remaining side length. If not specified, round to the hundredth. Okay. Good. All right. So we flip to the back. Okay, so we're looking at number 4. Personally, when I go through this, the first thing I identify is the hypotenuse given to us or not? The answer is yes. So that eliminates tangent. Whenever the hypotenuse is involved, there's a number of variable, we're not going to use tangent. Then you look at the other side and see, does it touch the angle or not? Does it touch the angle? Yes, so that's adjacent. So we're dealing with adjacent over hypotenuse, so we're dealing with cosine. So the cosine of what angle they give us, 56, equals the adjacent, which is x, over 13. We're solving for x. How do we get rid of a division by 13? Multiply. So we multiply both sides by 13. Whenever the variable is in the numerator of your trig ratio, you're always going to end up multiplying the trig function by the other side. Now, you have a calculator. Number 1, okay, depending upon your calculator and your mode, I'll gladly go through this with you on Monday. So if you have a calculator you want to bring in, and we want to walk through how to do it, everyone has a different calculator. If you have a TI-84, okay, if you have a TI-84 or TI, the first thing you want to make sure you do is this button right here, mode. Okay, you want to make sure you're in degrees in this class. You'll deal with radians on a future day, either next year in Algebra 2 or in Trig in 2 years. All right,
That's the radians and degrees. It's automatically set at radians. So you have to go down and you got to hit enter and convert it over to degrees. Otherwise, it's going to shoot out all the wrong answers. Okay? So you want to make sure your calculator is in degrees. Again, if you want to bring it in, all right, we can go from there. All right? So now all I'm going to do is plug in 13 cosine 56. 13, here's where your trig buttons are. Again, sine, cosine, tangent. So there's cosine. All right? And cosine shows up, 56. Then you hit enter, it'll shoot out your answer for you. All right? So it comes out to be 7.27. This, ladies and gentlemen, when you get the homework, is all I need to see. Your initial ratio. All right? If you do the rest in your head or on a calculator, all right, feel free to just show, but I just need to see the initial ratio. So if I look at number 5, okay, again, is the hypotenuse involved in this problem either as a variable or number? No, so that's got to be tangent. So the tangent of whatever angle they give me, 24, equals the opposite, which is 20, over x. Okay? Now, there's two ways of going about this. All right? Personally, again, I would take the tangent of 24 and put it over 1. Because that's something you've seen before. A portion getting paid, a proportion. How have you solved proportions all your life? Cross, multiply. So we do 1 times 20, which is 20, equals x times tangent 24. Again, I'm trying to solve for x, my variable. The x is being multiplied by tangent 24. How do I get rid of a multiplication by tangent 24? I divide by tangent 24. The other line of thinking is whenever you set this up and the variable's where in the denominator, you end up dividing the side length by the trig function. But again, if you set up a proportion, you'll be ready to go. So I go to my calculator, and I got to do 20 divided by tangent 24. And I get 44.9. All right? So I would just write 44.9. All right? So all I need to see when you get this assignment in a few minutes is your initial ratio, all right, that you set up, your initial equation, and your final answer. Number 6. All right, is the hypotenuse involved? Yes. This time, it's opposite. That would be sine. So the sine of what angle? 45 equals the opposite, which is x, over the hypotenuse, which is 14. How do I get rid of a division by 14? Of course, I multiply. So 14 sine 45. Okay, you go to your calculator, you do 14 sine 45, and it shoots out 9.89, which rounds up to 9.90, I believe. All right, now we'll talk about this next week before you have any type of quiz or test on this, but you're never going to use trig to do this problem. Why? What does 45 degrees represent? A special angle, right? That's an isosceles right triangle with a hypotenuse of 14. So you would use special right triangle to realize x is 7 root 2. All right? So you wouldn't be asked for that. I'm not going to do that to you. So if you're given one with a 30, 45, 60, you know instead of trig, use special right triangle, but we'll go through that next week as well when we have more time. Right now, I just want to introduce them. Okay? Then the last thing, finding angle measures. We'll be using the inverse trig functions to find these angle measures. TI 83 or 84, the mode, make sure it is in degrees, hit second, and then the correct trig function. Again, if you have a different calculator, the homework assignment for this won't be due until Monday night. So if you go home and you're not able to use your calculator to do trig, Okay? Okay? So now we're looking at angles. Okay, so same thing. Is the hypotenuse involved at all? No, so which trig functions it gotta be? Tangent. So tangent of my question mark angle equals the side opposite it, which is 76, over the adjacent, which is 29. So they're giving you the trig ratio. All right. So I got tangents question. So basically, all you do in your calculator is second, then tangent, and then this will show up in your calculator, parentheses. You do 76 divided by 29. Then you get your calculator out. All right. This is your second button. Tangent, 76 divided by 29. Enter. And it'll shoot out the angle measure for you. That's about 69 degrees. All right. If you look at number 8, now the hypotenuse is involved. So you ask yourself, is 44 the opposite or the adjacent? It is opposite, so it's sine. So the sine of question mark equals 44 over 52. You go to your calculator, second sine, 44 divided by 52. And you get 57.79, which is going to round up to 58 degrees. All right. The last one, number 9, once again, the hypotenuse is involved. This time in relation to the angle, the 12 is the adjacent. So I'm going to use cosine. So the cosine of the question mark equals 12 over 49. So I just hit second cosine. It'll automatically give you the parentheses. 12 divided by 49. Second cosine 12 divided by 49. And you get about 76 degrees. If you don't have a calculator at home for whatever reason, just show your ratios and proportions, and then when you come in Monday, you'll probably have time to just plug those in real quick with a calculator. All right? Well, let me give you the assignment that's due on Monday, and then we'll walk through other options you have. You're welcome. So this is due Monday at midnight. All right? It's just 18 problems like you just did. 6 where you're just writing down the ratio. 6 where you're finding side length. 6 where you're finding an angle. Okay. So if you do not have a calculator, all right, this one's not going to help us, so you got to look for different things. All right, if you do a scientific calculator, you can usually find one online. All right, so you can find a calculator online. All right, the difference is with that, if you're going to do this, all right, something like that, check to see if you have to put in the sine and cosine first. And then over here is the little degrees button. Now it's in degrees. So 62 sine to double check that. All right, to go from there. All right. The other thing you can do, this is how we used to do it in the early days. It was a trig table where something like that, where they give you all the trig values, the estimated block. Come on, give me something I can use here, people. Stop. I really need to learn how to use the internet. There, maybe. There you go. All right. So what you have to do is then you can look it up. So these are the degrees, and then they give you the decimal equivalences. If you honestly, it's not a big deal. If you don't have a calculator, talk to me on Monday. We'll take care of it, because this is the one unit you're really going to need a calculator for, is the trig unit. So if you really don't have one, just set everything up on your paper. Monday, come find me, and discreetly we'll take care of you in terms of getting it. Okay? And you can just borrow it for the time that we're doing this. We'll walk you through how to do it. Just find me on Monday. None of this is on tomorrow's quiz, so you should be good to go. All right, and again, when you take the quiz tomorrow, there'll be a spot in Google Classroom for you to submit your work if you'd like. Math Lab is open today if you're looking to stay after. In the 910 library, Miss McPhee will be down there. All right, answering any questions you might have.